hold on. Two different, yeah, there we go.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Warlord Card Gamer, and today we're going to be launching two different series of, I guess, videos that we're going to be doing. The first one is actually Warlord Wednesdays, and so we'll be attempting to get a Warlord video out at least once a week on Wednesdays. And the second series we're basically going to be launching, whether or not it'll be on a Wednesday or some other days, is going to be discussing Warlord decks. One of the things that I've noticed on the Facebook Warlord group, which we'll link below, if you like Warlord and want to learn more about it, join the group. A lot of people are asking, especially people joining, the game and wanting to learn about it, are asking about decks. They want to learn, they want to see deck lists, and unfortunately, one of the older resources that Warlord used to have, which used to be called the Temple of Lore, has been down for a long time, and so that resource is no longer available, and so there is no kind of one centralized place at the moment where you can find lots of deck lists. And so I decided, since I've got lots of decks, we should start talking about them. We're going to start the series with one of my favorite decks, and the deck that I played in the World Series Championship thing that we did a month ago is Sanga-Kish. I took him out of the sleeve so it wouldn't be too reflective. There we go, Sanga-Kish. So he is very uncharacteristic for me to be playing because it is an aggressive or an aggro wizard. Generally, this is the Chosen. The Chosen is the weakest faction because it is the newest faction. It came out only in the 4th edition, and so there isn't a whole lot of card base for Chosen decks, so that's already kind of a negative point to begin with. But anyway, I really enjoy them. They're really hard to play with because they run on a very specific balance. Basically, a lot of them get more powerful while killing themselves, which is obviously helping your opponent to beat you. So particularly this Warlord is super, 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 super edgy and very, very difficult to play because he actually hurts himself. He wounds himself in order to look at the top 7 cards of your deck and attach a spell to him. So that's super powerful because obviously that allows you an extra card in hand, and that obviously allows you to be even more aggressive with spells. And his specific ability, the other one, is that for every wound that he has on him, his spells have +2 to DC and +2 to the range strike. So obviously, for every wound he gets, the stronger he gets. But the problem is that for every wound he gets, he's easier to kill. And that's the biggest problem with this deck, is that it's a glass cannon. If anybody has any range strikes or other spells or some other way to do janky shit to attack characters that are not in the front rank, then it is pretty easy to pick him off, unfortunately. And that's why we didn't win. One of the big reasons why we didn't win. But anyway, so I really enjoy it. So,
question from the guy who knows nothing about Warlord.
Yep.
In other card games, you were able to get life back yourself.
So yeah, you can heal. The issue is that that's usually a cleric thing, and so this is a wizard, and that's usually wizards. So basically, wizards have aggressive spells where they try and kill things, and clerics usually have healing spells where they try and heal things. Usually, obviously, clerics are healing their own army and they're buffing them, whereas wizards do the opposite. They basically try to do damage to the opposing army to win. So yeah, so basically, this is my starting army. We start with 2 Mitraz. These guys are great in that you don't have to spend them to attack. You need to spend a higher level Chosen character, which are these, which don't really do anything, so that's actually perfect. And they have 2 hit points, so that's always good. Kalias are great because they say non-opposing thralls within 1 rank gain +1 attack, AC, and skill, which is something that... So these are great because they stack. So basically all of my thralls... So again, the Chosen have basically 3 different levels of society. Thralls are slaves, and then you have the Masters, which are all the masked guys, and then you have the Daemons, which are basically like the people, like this guy. This is Gatraxos. He's a Daemon. And so the Daemons are the super powerful demons. And so the Masters generally kill thralls to empower demons to be more powerful and kill the opposing army. In this case, he just empowers himself. And the Devoted is awesome because Devoted lets you thin your deck and gives you stability. So this is all rank stability. This is actually, I think, one of the most stable starting armies in the Chosen faction. So it only has 1 hit point, but basically when he dies, you get to search your deck for another one of them. So basically this deck, as long as you're not drawing anything else, you're already starting with basically 7 cards in hand, technically. You've got the 5 from the draw, the 1 from Sanga, and then if this dies, you get, which more than likely happens, you get a 7th one. So you're thinning your deck a bit. So there we go. So the deck, in Warlord, you can only have 3 of a card. So the deck has 3 of the Devoted, 2 in the deck, and 1 starting. I also play 3 Temple of Lores, which are great because it's automatic buff to the Warlord. Temple of Lore gives all of your characters a bonus to attack, AC, and skill equal to their level. And any characters that are 5th level or higher get an extra hit point. So that automatically makes me 4 hit points. Torn is an automatic include. You can only have 1 in Ancients, so it's basically epic. But he's amazing because that allows you to draw. So we're going to go through the deck as I had it during the tournament, and then I'll talk about a couple of things that didn't work out and see how I think I would fix it. And you all are welcome to comment what you think would make this deck better, other than, you know, the running joke is changing the faction, of course. So yeah, so this would be the starting army. My characters are 2 more Devoteds, so I'll just throw them up here. 3 Temples of Lore. You can only have 1 in play at a time, but they're usually a major target when it does come out, so it's not that bad. Archery Tower is also epic in Ancient, so you can only have 1. This is obviously amazing. It gives you +6 to your range strike rolls, so whenever you're shooting, which you're going to be doing, that helps do damage. Cabal Spire is the same thing, but with DCs. It gives +3 to DC rolls or DC checks that you make. Now we have Master Nax and Pagophoros. These guys are in here basically just for walls. You're going to need, basically, obviously you can't go to the front rank unless it's absolutely like a last-ditch effort to win. You need stuff, you need hit points, you need things to be in the front to survive. And so this guy has 3 hit points each. Pago, if I sacrifice something, will also have 3 hit points, and he's also a planar, which makes it hard for certain decks to kill. But he's also a lot weaker against other decks. Whenever you're doing spells, planar does not apply. Planar is when you roll the die against him. If it rolls odd, it automatically misses unless it's a spell. So if there's another wizard shooting at him, it's really easy to kill. And I think those are all the characters. So now let's go on with the items. So I've got 2 Cloak of the Leech. This is amazing. If you can pull this out the first turn, that is usually very, very powerful. It's one of the more powerful cards out there, I believe. Just because it automatically starts with 1 charge. After the ready phase, you put an additional charge on it, and spells cast by this wizard get a bonus to range strikes and DC saves equal to number of charges on the cloak. So it automatically gives you an extra +1 to range strikes and +1 to DC. So obviously, again, here the point is to buff your spells as much as possible. The biggest problem with aggro wizards is that, at least in my experience, it's really hard to generate enough strikes to actually destroy an opposing army. And so they need to be powerful enough to actually do damage. The other most powerful card in the deck is definitely the Ring of Blasting. Now, during Epic Edition, you could actually start this in play. That is no longer available. During Ancients format, it is no longer something you can do, but you can have it in the deck. You can only have 1 because it's epic, but it is super, super powerful. It has 2 actions. Order, remove a spell from your discard pile from the game. This wizard spells have +2 bonus to DC and range strike rolls until end of turn, so that you basically are, again, buffing your spells. And then you have discard a spell. Your spells inflict an additional 1 until end of turn. So basically you can discard a spell from your hand that you're not going to use because you might have 2 different spells that are spend orders. So basically you no longer have a dead card, and you're buffing the next spell you're going to cast this turn to do extra damage. And then you can remove it to buff it even more to have a higher DC and or range strike. Then we also have the Red Worm's Egg, which is quite powerful. That allows you to spend the egg before it makes a range strike roll to do an additional wound if it hits. The other issue with aggro spell slingers is that there really aren't a whole lot of ways to do extra damage with the spells. So again, these are both 2 of the few things, or the few items that are super effective at doing that. We have a little bit of recursion in the deck, so I put a Darkwood Staff in it. It has 2 abilities: order, spend the staff, shuffle a wizard spell from your discard pile into your deck, and order once per turn, remove an item in your discard pile from the game, ready the staff. So at least 1 spell, so that if in the case of a long game, you don't have to worry about throwing spells away, which happened to me before I had put that into the deck. So there are a couple of spells in here that are super key, but for whatever reason, they might not be useful in the first turn, and you don't want to hold cards because you never know what's going to happen on the second turn. So it is usually easier to just throw them away and hope that you can get them back with a Darkwood Staff, or that you'll draw them at another moment, because there are obviously copies in the deck. And lastly, I have a spellbook. I put 2 spellbooks in the deck because it is super important. It increases your DC checks by +2, again, buffing, and it allows you to be +1 level for casting spells. That's super important because of, so there's one particular spell where that really matters. and that is Boil Blood. I only have 2 of them in the deck, but this is a game winner if you can pull one of these in the mid to late game. Boil Blood is characters of level 6 or higher do not spend to perform this action. So basically, once you have the spellbook on there, you can now do this as an order, which is amazing. And it's a spend order. Target a character within 2 ranks must succeed with 3 consecutive magic saves, DC 5 plus the caster's skill, or suffer a wound for each failed save. So basically, you can do at least 3 wounds if you're looking at really high saves. The whole point of the deck is you need to get those saves to like above 30, because generally most characters will have something between 7 and 12, let's say, skill. So once you've buffed at around 30, you're basically obligating your opposing army to roll 20s, and that is something that you're basically winning that game. It's pretty hard to come back from that. The next spells, I have 4 movement spells. So I've got 3 teleports and I have 1 jump. And the point of that is to basically guarantee that you're going to be moving from the 3rd rank at the beginning of your turn of the first turn into the 2nd rank. Basically, roughly, I don't remember the numbers, somebody can run them, but with having 4 of them in the deck, you're more than likely to either draw one in the first hand or have one available in those top 7 if you don't have it in the hand. Teleport is also super key. I don't have the 4th edition version on it, but 4th edition implemented like arcane types, and so teleport is actually an air spell now. I don't have the MSRP, but usually it would have said air here. And so that matters because there are spells that would connect with that, and my favorite one is actually Heaven's Wrath. I think it's a really underappreciated spell. Heaven's Wrath. Heaven's Wrath is an awesome spell because it's a react speed. Again, one of the biggest points, it's really hard to just, if you're a fighter and you're in the front rank and you have like 5 strikes and you win initiative and you can spend and you do 5 different attacks or 5 strikes in one attack, you can decimate somebody's opposing front rank and destroy ranks. That's really hard to achieve with an aggro spell slinger, whereas having something like this where you're basically like chain lightninging or chaining spells off of each other makes it a lot easier to actually destroy somebody else's ranks. They don't expect it. Again, usually you're throwing one big spell and then it's their order. And so Heaven's Wrath has, particularly the most important one here, is react. After this wizard performs an air action, target up to 2 characters within 2 ranks. Each target must succeed with a DC 15 or suffer a wound. And again, those DCs are basically guaranteed at least 17. All right, so yeah, so that's my favorite part about the card, the react. It also has a spend order, perform 2 +4 range strikes and may target an additional rank away. So if your opponent is about to die and you might be able to hit them a little bit further away, that's definitely a great spell to do that with. The other air spells that I have in the deck to make sure that I have an air spell to be able to do that as a react, because the react, that ability is only as a react with another air spell, so you can't just order and use the 2 DC 15s. We got Ball Lightning, which is a weaker version. Basically, it's the exact same thing, but it only targets 1 character, and it's an order. So we have 3 of those. This is kind of messy. I'll try and fix this. So Heaven's Wrath. These are all the air spells. Jump is not an air spell, but I needed at least 4 in the deck. And then Conjure Storm. That's another game winner. Also hugely underappreciated spell, in my opinion. This comes out of nowhere, and it basically is a spend order, perform a +8 range strike that inflicts an additional wound. Range strikes are 2 ranks away, so you're in the 2nd rank, you're hitting someone else's 1st rank. And then you perform a +4 range strike against the target 3 or more ranks away. So basically anywhere on the board other than those first 2 ranks. So that's super powerful to knock off opposing little guys in the back or a running warlord. Lastly, I have the key spell in this deck in order for it to make it, just to survive basically anywhere in the Ancients format, is Soul Siphon. This allows you to gain lots of hit points to be able to survive lots of hits and to continue using his own ability to basically continue generating pressure with these range strikes or with these spells. And so it's spend order, target opposing character within 2 ranks must succeed with 3 consecutive magic strikes, DC 5 plus this wizard's skill. For each failed save, the target loses 1 level permanently and a character in your army gains 1 level permanently. So you get to choose. Obviously, you choose your warlord here. And while they might not win, or rather miss all 3 of those saves, you're still getting usually at least 1 or 2 extra hit points. And so you're hoping, in the best case scenario, you're getting 3 extra hit points, which is massive. And this is also a win condition as well, because if anyone gets to level 0, they automatically die, and there's a 0 thing they can do about that. You're dead. And so this is a super powerful card in the deck. And then we also, definitely needed draw, so Meet at the Inn is in here, because again, we need as many of these order spells as possible. We've got 3 Icy Surge, which I'm not a huge fan of. It can be powerful, but it just doesn't always work when it needs to. Icy Surge's order, perform a +5 range strike. After the strike, the target must succeed with a DC 12 or become spent. So if you get, first order, that might help. And if you really need to knock off your opposing, front rank fighter, you've got the spend order, perform a +8 range strike. After the strike, the target must succeed with a DC 5 plus his wizard skill or become stunned. So that could be a game changer, but in reality, it's just not something that actually kills them. And I haven't found it to be extremely effective when I was playing. And lastly, we have 1 Incinerate. Incinerate is a hugely popular spell for whatever reason. I'm not a huge fan. You have order, perform a +6 range strike, so it's a free range strike, or spend order, perform 2 +9 range strikes. So the +9 range strikes are strong, but it's just 2. And it's not something that I can chain off of, again, like the air spells. So I only run 1, and it's only because I needed something else to throw in there to do more damage. Honestly, I felt like I needed, again, more draw, so I definitely didn't have enough, and I needed to mess with my opponents more. So one of the most powerful cards that I would have included, or that I should include. All right, we're back. There was a quick pause there. So to look at the cards that I would throw in here after my experience playing in the Ancients tournament, I think that I needed more draw, because I need to get particular cards out as soon as possible, and I needed more cards to mess with the opponent. Not just trying to kill them, but obviously trying to stop them. And so the most important card there is probably Exhaustion. Exhaustion is a pretty broken card in general, and basically it allows you to stop an action that an opponent is doing that when if they're ready, you can spend them, and if they're spent, you can cancel the action. So basically, it's a level 1 card. Any character can play it, which is why it's quote-unquote broken. Spend a react after a character performs an action, spend the character, and spend a react when a spent character performs an action, cancel the action. So if somebody's trying to equip an item while they're spent, you basically get them to throw that item away, so it's pretty cool. So I would play with at least 2 of these, maybe 3 of them. I'm not sure what I would take out. Let me know what you think. As you just saw right now, the other card that I would really play with, which is pretty broken, it feels weird playing with it, Daedalus. Daedalus is an elf, but Daedalus is one of the unique, and I think one of the only exceptions in the game. Basically, it's not a react, so when you play Daedalus, it just says after she enters play, you draw a card. And so usually, the problem is that when you play a character out of faction that isn't a mercenary, they come into play stunned, and when a character's stunned, it can't perform any actions. But because this is a static effect, it's not an action, so anybody playing Daedalus, she comes in play stunned in the 3rd rank, and you still draw a card. And so that allows you to throw, there's a word for that in MTG. It's a let me know what that is, but there's a word for it. There's a word for it where basically you're putting a card down and you get to draw a card. So it's not a hugely powerful card, but it thins out the deck, and it puts an extra hit point on the board for you. And so yeah, I would probably take out the Pago Force and maybe a Master Nax, just because Pago makes me, take one of my own wounds away. And again, it was relatively weak against certain deck types, and so it wasn't great. For example, Glyph of Healing. Glyph of Healing at some point was in my deck. It's just not powerful enough. You can basically heal. The character might equip more than 1 Glyph of Healing per game and react, discard the Glyph of Healing after this character suffers wounds to reduce the wounds to 0. So if you're taking a 3 hit point, a 3 damage in 1 strike, then that reduces it to 0. If you're only taking 1 hit, it's 1. But again, that just doesn't. What you need is more hit points on the Warlord, and there are cards that will do that. But again, just 1 card for 1 hit point is just not worth it. You need something that's more efficient, basically. So you need to be either super aggro. Defensive is, you don't win games by being defensive. You win games by being aggro. And so Daedalus allows me to draw more cards. So I do think these 2 are super important into the deck that would make it better. One of the other things that would make the deck a little bit better, especially because so many of the cards are based off of skill checks, would be Tiebast. Tiebast is super powerful, another elf. He's level 1, so that helps you with putting stuff in the front rank. While he's in your discard pile, opposing characters have -2 skill. So that would, again, it's a 2-for-1. You're giving yourself 1 extra hit point in the front rank, and your opposing characters have -2 skill, which means that your spells are more powerful, especially speaking of Boil Blood and Soul Siphon. So that would be another one that I would consider putting in just to help make the spells more powerful. Other than that, I looked at Back Alley Tavern. Back Alley Tavern is react after a player uses a card effect to draw a card or retrieve a card from his or her deck, draw 2 cards, so it gives you more draw. And you can spend order, draw a card with a level 3 or higher character. Black Moss. Spend Black Moss to do 1 wound to this character and 1 wound to a character in adjacent rank. If Black Moss kills this character, you may choose to equip it to another one of your characters. So basically, the point is Black Moss is a guaranteed hit point or guaranteed damage to an opposing character. You don't have to roll anything. It's just something in the front rank. You do an extra wound. So if the game is dependent on doing 1 extra wound on the opposing Warlord, then that's basically a good game. So let me show you those 2 quickly. You got, that's Back Alley Tavern. And then we've got the Black Moss, which is super important as well. Not in this particular deck type, but it's something that could be considered. Lastly, we have 2 very powerful spells that I would consider. Pull the Strings. It's a Bards and Wizard only. This is a spell, so it's actually a classless spell originally. And that means because it's multi-class. Bards are usually rogues. Spend order. Target a lower level non-warlord character who must make a magic save DC 20. If the character fails the save, that character gains stealth plus 15 and is under your control until the end of the turn. So if somebody's playing a heavy cavalry deck where they're bringing level 4 and 5 characters, if you can grab that character to then strike their warlord, that could be a good game. But if you're playing a weenie deck or playing against a weenie deck, then this isn't really useful because you're just picking up a level 1 character, and that's not going to win you the game. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of that one, but it is something to really mess with your opponent. And another really powerful spell here is Medusan Lord's Gambit. The biggest problem with this one is you can't react to the spell at all. So you wouldn't be able to use, Red Worm's Egg, for example. But anyway, spend order, target up to 2 characters in different ranks who must succeed with a magic save DC 5 plus his caster's skill or suffer a wound. If the target fails by 10 or more, or the rolls are critical failures, he suffers an additional wound. And so characters may not react to the spell. So the reason this is super important is because you can target characters anywhere in the game. So you can target 2 different characters in 2 different ranks anywhere in the game and make them take wounds. And again, if you can bring that DC up really high and they lose or they miss it by 10 or more, they're taking 2 wounds. Yeah, that's about it. I had a list of other cards. I had the Shield Dulan instead of the Spellbook. I'm not a fan of it. Sorry, there you go. Not a fan of it because it's an order. So Spellbook guarantees the +2 to DC spells. The shield says order once per turn until end of turn. This character adds +2 to range strike rolls from spells for each Dulan set item equipped to this character. So you actually have to order it, whereas the Spellbook is automatic. And at the same time, having both of them in the deck made it so that I didn't want to discard one of them. Whereas having the 2 Spellbooks meant that if I get the other one, I can toss it for either the Torn, and then it's in the discard pile for me to reuse for Darkwood Staff to be able to reshuffle something into my deck. Robo the Plains is another really cool one, which I could have used because it basically goes off of the same ability as the Warlord, but it's kind of repetitive. And it's order once per turn, inflict a wound on this wizard, play a spell from your discard pile, then remove it from the game. That's greater, it's good for late game, not so great at the beginning, especially because you only have 3 hit points. And so if you're already doing 1 damage to yourself, then you throw a second one on there already in the first turn, it's going to hurt. It's a lot easier to lose on that. All right, so last 2 cards, and that is Dark Heart of Kilnian and the Necklace of Spell Storing. These are both cards that I had considered to put into the deck, and these are because it gives you Scribe and allows you to bring cards or spells back from the discard pile again. Again, it's just too slow. You need tempo in this deck. You need to be really quick. You need to be killing opposing characters as fast as possible, and that was what I have learned playing this deck. I really enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the video. Please let me know what you think and what you think would be better for the deck other than, not playing Chosen. I know. It's kind of a going joke. It's a meme. But yeah, I really love it. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Take care, everyone.